Hey everyone, this is Sean, and this is my first top 5 list ever. So I'm going to get right to it. I'm doing top 5 baseball stadiums based on my criteria only. You might have your own opinions. You might agree with me, you might disagree with me. I want to hear it in the comments below. So there are 30 teams, 30 stadiums. I'm only going to be talking about current stadiums. So only the current 30 teams, the current 30 stadiums that were being played in as of 2023. The season's just ended. So there will be no classics, no old Yankee Stadium, no Tiger Stadium, no Polo Grounds, and all those other wacky old stadiums. So without further ado, here are the top 5 current MLB stadiums, in my opinion, for 2023. Number 5, I have Citizens Bank Ballpark, where the Phillies play. It opened in 2004. It cost $458 million. All these costs are at the time it opened. I didn't really want to make the difference between then and now because it always changes. So at the time, that's how much it cost. Record attendance was the 2011 NLDS versus the Reds. I believe that was the game where Roy Halladay pitched a no-hitter. So I really like this park. You see the skyline. The seats are, I feel like, spaced perfectly, like center field. You got the little shrubbery. You got the skyline, like I've already said. They actually scooped this stadium out. Here, actually, let's see another shot here. There was some controversy. The stadium, they feel like, could have been a little bit closer to the skyline, and fans and even the owner says on record that he regrets it's not closer to downtown. Personally, I think it's kind of cool that you see it almost the whole skyline, but I do agree that it could have been a lot cooler if they was closer. But that Liberty Bell, I will admit, it is a little tacky, but that's okay. I do like a few gimmicks in my ballpark. But what I did not know before doing research for this is that this stadium is actually built at ground level, and they scooped 23 feet below the street level to build the stadium. So you see these shots of it from high, and I've never really seen these shots before, but it's really cool to see that the stadium, yes, it is parallel to the street. Like if you look towards that behind the center field scoreboard area, that is right on street level, yet you are right above all the action in left field. So pretty cool that they made it work that way. I really like those designs of the stadiums where it's close, it's intimate, you feel like you can be close to the action from every seat. In 2010, it actually hosted the first National League game with a DH. So I'm going to come back to the Liberty Bell, but I just really wanted to say I thought that was a quirky little fact because in 2010, they were going to have the G20 summit where all the leaders of the countries around the world meet, and they were scared about protests or issues with security or something like that. So they just decided not to have people in the area, and they hosted the game in Philadelphia, actually. So first National League game hosted with a designated hitter. But back to the Bell. You tell me what you think. I think if you're going to do something big and gimmicky, it's got to look a little better. I mean, it's just a few lights. You got the ringing, you got the history, I understand. But if you're going to have a big gimmicky thing for your stadium, I don't know. Would have picked something a little better. Might have stopped it from being higher up. But this stadium is used for other things. Jimmy Buffett, not pictured here, actually had a concert, and apparently 85,000 people were there. They fit that many people in the stadium. Don't know if that number was true, but definitely saw that somewhere. Pretty cool stadium all around. Number 5. So, number 4 for me will be Camden Yards, where the Orioles play. This opened in 1992, cost about $110 million, and the record attendance was in 2005. 49,000 versus the Red Sox. They're both fighting for the division that summer, so big game there. This is considered a retro classic ballpark. It's actually the first of its kind because 90s, 80s, it was even 70s, 60s. It was huge having those multi-purpose stadiums. Didn't really care how it looked. You just wanted to fit football and baseball in. This kind of started this new renaissance of having stadiums look beautiful, but also be practical and have 3 decks or have high capacity. So kind of a mix of both worlds. So they did a fantastic job for one of the first ones. Unfortunately, I learned that it almost was not as cool as the stadium we got. There is that center field. You see a little bit of the Baltimore skyline there. We'll talk about that more later. But before I cut myself off, this is not Camden Yards. This is actually the White Sox horrible stadium, one of my least favorite, which is a future video idea. Let me know if you want it. I read that they almost made a carbon copy of this stadium for Camden Yards, but Janet Marie Smith, the architectural consultant, turned it down and said, I want a retro style. So she is the savior. She's the reason we got Camden Yards. I really do not like the Chicago Stadium. I mean, I don't know if you could have had it facing the skyline, but I don't understand the windows. It's very enclosed. It's very boring. Imagine 2 of these. Oh my goodness. Knowing what we got, I am so happy. So that warehouse in right field, very famous. It was used for a railroad in 1905. Used it for a long time, up until the 70s. And then when they built the new stadium in the 90s, they decided to use it as the backdrop. And they actually were able to convert the inside of it to team offices. So pretty cool. They found multiple uses for this over a 100-year span, and now it's one of the most iconic things there. That is also used for wedding receptions, a private club, office spaces for the team. Talking about the skyline, though, unfortunately, a reason this is a little further down is there was a much better view of that skyline, but unfortunately, they were building a big hotel. That is now the view. So halfway through this stadium's life, a hotel was built. Unfortunately, it does block a lot of that skyline that I think is pretty cool. You can see a 2001, 2007 it being built, and then 2010 it was finished. Not the same, but definitely not as bad as what they did in Oakland, I will say. Another cool thing I learned is that on Utah Street, it is a real street, but it's closed down for people who don't have tickets on game days. So you can only get in there with a ticket, and it's a cool open area. You can go walking on it. They actually make a bronze plaque for every ball that goes on the street. Stadium opened in 92, and there's been 120 so far. And it doesn't matter what team you're on. As you can see here, Justin Morneau, they have the distance, the date. Pretty cool little feature I never knew about. Also, this is the only ball that has ever hit the warehouse. It hit right at the bottom of the wall. Ken Griffey Jr. during the Home Run Derby. Definitely a lot of cool things to see if you go to Camden Yards. Some great moments here. That kind of, that will put a stadium a little higher on the list for me. There's some iconic moments. None better than Cal Ripken's streak. Bringing us to number 3. A little choppy here. My first video. I know you guys will forgive me. I will get better. You got to start somewhere. PNC Park is my number 3. It opened in 2001. Cost at the time was $216 million. The record attendance was 40,000 on a 2015 National League wildcard game versus the Cubs. It's another retro classic ballpark. So they have that open, beautiful aesthetic. They went from a multi-purpose stadium. They wanted something new, and they did a fantastic job. Great views of that skyline. I can kind of see where Philadelphia is coming from because it is much closer and just a much cleaner look of the skyline of the city. You have the Allegheny River. You have the themed bridge. So this stadium was actually designed by the same company who did Camden Yards. This is also the first ballpark to feature an out-of-town scoreboard, which has all these following things: the score, the innings, the out, and the base runners, and it has it for every single game. 2022, they replaced it with ads, as things usually go, but actually was brought back after fan outcry, so I'm happy they listened to their fans. Not a lot of teams do that nowadays. Talking about the bridge, though, it was named after Roberto Clemente as a compromise. They wanted to name the stadium after him. PNC was like, no, so they named the bridge after him. Bridge is closed on game days, and the fans can walk across it. It's like a whole experience they want them to have. This stadium was actually built in less than 2 years. It is the quickest built stadium of any of the current 30. less than 24 months. So, such an awesome park, and they built it so quick. Here's a nighttime shot. You can see some buildings lit up. You see the bridge in the background. I would love to go see a game here. Also, something I found really cool is that there's only two decks. It's one of the only ballparks with two decks. The highest seat away from the field is only 88 feet. And this bumped it up to the top three for me because I'm a huge fan of old stadiums like Tiger Stadium that are just intimate. You feel like you're part of the game, almost like a football game. I love baseball more than football, but I really love going to football games live because no matter what seat you're at, I was at the top of SoFi earlier this season for Dolphins versus Chargers, and it was electric. And I've been closer for a 49er game. Just having that intimacy for a baseball game, I love it. So look at this Tiger Stadium right by the field. You got that obstructed view, unfortunately, but PNC Park, as you can see, two decks. This is the top of, like, almost the top seat this picture is, and still a pretty good view. So just checks a lot of things off my boxes for me. Beautiful stadium, really close to the field. I think they did a fantastic job here. So we're going to go on to some honorable mentions. I have two, and for two different reasons. Oh, sorry. I have number two first before my honorable mentions. Forget I said that. Fenway Park opened in 1912. It cost $650,000 at the time, and I did show how much this would be now because it was so long ago. Only $19 million at the time, so still was pretty cheap. But I will say that they've done a ton of renovations over the years. I will be showing it later, but had to put Fenway at number two. So much history with this ballpark. You might be thinking, is Wrigley going to be on here? No, I unfortunately did not put Wrigley. Also a ton of history there. Don't want to knock it. It would definitely be in my top 10, but I just personally like Fenway Park more. Here we have some early pictures of it, and it's definitely a lot different than today. As you can see, totally different dimensions, but they had to really cut some corners to get this park built. Here is a top-down street view of where it is. As you can see, they just had a tight area to work with. They had Jersey Street, Van Ness Street, that other one right above. I know it has a famous name. You can hit balls on it, but just they were really tucked in there. Here's a more three-dimensional view, and you can really appreciate how they've made the dimensions work, and that's definitely led to some of the quirkiness of the stadium. So I circled some of these changes. You can pause it. There's the whole Wikipedia page. 46, they added upper deck seats. 47, they added lights. Before 2003, there were actually seats added to the Green Monster, and I was surprised that it was so recently. I don't know why. I just always kind of imagined that there were seats up there, but no, I was looking at some pictures, and it's pretty liminal looking, honestly. Like, okay, sorry. I'll show you this, and I'll go back to that. Here you can see for the 99 All-Star game, like, I don't know. Like, it just does not look right to me as a fan who's only been watching since the seats have been up there. This picture especially, just before some random game, it looks like. This looks like softball or Little League or something. It does not look like the Green Monster that I know and love. So that's another little quirk. Back to the ground rules. Ton of weird, quirky ground rules. You can pause it. You can go to the Wikipedia, but just a stadium with so many quirks, obviously going to have a lot more ground rules than the usual. As you can see in center field, there's that black tarp right in center field. Pretty interesting. They actually tarp the seats, or they don't sell them during day games because there's not a traditional batter's eye. So they either can't have anyone sitting there or it's blacked out. I don't really know what distinguishes it, but they need to not sell those for the batter's eye, which no one else does that. I'm almost positive. And then at nighttime, they can sell the seats. And so the capacity is different for day and night at Fenway, just by a few hundred, but you really want to pack the park, you got to have a night game. Also, in 1999, the CEO announced that Fenway Park would have to be rebuilt. They did this report. It was found out that the park only had 15 years left as of 1999 if they didn't do anything. So they were like, do we build it somewhere else? Do we build it on top? It's such a historic stadium. So They only were able to save the green monster in the third base side of the stadium, but they did this whole big rebuild. And after the renovations, they started in 2001. It took them 10 years, but they now say that Fenway Park will remain usable till 2062. So, added new seats to right field, added grandstands, all these different things. As you can see on the right side, a whole big announcer's booth and press box. This is before you can still have some appreciation. This is after. You can see more on the right side, the upper deck. They add a lot of things, but they kept it the same. They kept the monster. They kept those third baseline seats. Very, very cool. It is one of only two Jewel Box parks still in the league. Jewel Box Park is a park that had to really be confined to its street most of the time. More intimate setting, kind of like Tiger Stadium I showed earlier. It has those tiered decks. A big theme of Jewel Box Stadium is those obstructed views, believe it or not. Just so the upper deck could get closer to the action, they had to be right on top of the lower deck. And Wrigley Field is the only other Jewel Box left in the league. And some more quirks I'll rattle off. You have the triangle, which is the triangle in center field. You also have, I didn't know this had a name, that wall that's pushed out in front of the bleachers or the bullpen in right field is called Williamsburg, named after Ted Williams, who would hit so many balls over there. And I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to show you my mouse right here is the famous red seat where the farthest ball was ever hit at the stadium, allegedly, by Ted Williams. There's the red seat from the vantage point of the seat. Here it is. You can see it in a sea of seats. Another cool history thing they do. This one's famous. The Pesky Pole. It was named after Johnny Pesky, not just called Pesky Pole for no reason. He only had 17 career home runs. 6 of them were at Fenway, and apparently all of them were just wrapped around the pole. Never hit the pole. He was a career contact hitter. He only played for about 10 years, but pesky pole actually didn't become a popular saying for the foul pole until somebody who played at the same time as Johnny Pesky, Mel Parnell, became a broadcaster, and he called it the pesky pole. So 2006, they dedicated the pole as Pesky's pole on his birthday. Pesky's birthday, that is. So pretty cool. Some history for the pole there. They've had a ton of different events as well. There's the Fenway Bowl they do for college. They are able to do hockey, concerts, anything. Literally, like, they can do anything there, it looks like. So, people of Boston, very creative, very beautiful stadium, very historic. Now, my honorable mentions. I will not jump the gun again. First, we have Rangers Ballpark in Arlington. I know I would not... said I wouldn't mention stadiums that aren't around, but this one should be around. It had to close due to the heat. As you can see, it opened in 94 and it closed in 2019, and that's literally the only reason why. Cost 191. Record attendance was when my Giants beat the Rangers in the World Series, 52,000 on October 30th. I really love that center field, the white grandstand area. Right field with the roof is classic. I'm just very sad that this was closed. I love the center field with the grass area. The outside of the stadium is phenomenal. I mean, look at this outside of the stadium. And then look at this one. I mean, we could have tried a little harder, I think. Come on. Congratulations to the Rangers winning the World Series, but still, I mean, the inside of this place, it leaves a lot to be desired for me. I really do love their old home. I know there wasn't much they could have done about it, but I wish the inside was a little more inspired here. Like, where's the grass area in center? Where's the cool grandstands? I see that little thing they're doing beyond left field, but that just reminds me of Minute Maid Park, and I feel like they do the train and everything over there much better. So these brick pillars are not going to be the selling point for me. I'm sorry. I've seen enough playoff games here to know that this is just kind of a boring stadium. But the stadium is still being used for the Dallas Jackals rugby team, the North Texas SC soccer club, FC Dallas's reserve team, so kind of like the Miners, I think, and the Renegades of the XFL. Also, in center field, apparently Six Flags headquarters is one of the office buildings. I'm happy it's still getting used. Maybe one day they'll do an exhibition here or something. I don't know. That'd be cool. And this next one, you guys are going to have to stick with me for this. Please do not click away. I have the Oakland Coliseum, built in 1966. Probably will be demolished sometime in 2027. It cost $25 million to make at the time. The Mount Davis renovations in 95 cost $200 million, and the record attendance was not that World Series game versus the Giants. It was an attendance that I did not put in the video. So, too bad. Look it up. I love stadiums, and I cannot help but love the fact that there is still a living relic of the past era, this past era that's not very fondly remembered, of these multi-purpose stadiums, but this is so much different than just a regular multi-purpose stadium. Started out just as baseball, and when the stadium's gone, I'm going to miss going there to see a game and all the memories I've made there. Haven't been alive for even close to half of the stadium's life, so I can only imagine all the countless memories that other people have made there. And this stadium does get a lot of deserved negativity for the current state it's in. I will agree with that, but I'm definitely going to miss it once the A's are finally done extending its long life much longer than it should have been around. But some of the pictures of this stadium early on, I mean, they're beautiful. Like, look at this, that open center field area. You can see the hills. It was magnificent. But in 1995, when they were wanting to keep the Raiders in Oakland, they said they would only stay in Oakland if Mount Davis was built, and they would leave otherwise. So they did start building Mount Davis, and I found this crazy video from Nick Beat on YouTube, the building of Mount Davis, and it's a 15-minute video of recorded footage at a game that they were actually playing as it was being built. It's even creepier than it looks. Like just the gross tarp in center field, just a bad omen. I mean, you went from this beautiful open air to just being entombed inside. And the sad part is that the Raiders didn't even stay, so this was built for no reason really. Tarped off almost always for the A's unless it's a playoff game. Speaking of, when there is a playoff game, the fans do come out. I mean, this team deserves to stay in Oakland. There's a loyal fan base there, a multitude of reasons why they don't come out, but their passion is not one of them. The Raiders, who forced this Mount Davis to be built, ended up tarping it off as well near the end of their life here. So, built for no reason, almost kind of ruined the stadium. I mean, not kind of. I know it wouldn't last longer whether Mount Davis was there or not, but I feel like a lot of people's opinions would be a lot different if it just wasn't there, that monstrosity. And what do you know? Even in Vegas, it's just, they just know it now as a place where visiting fans go. And I'm sure that's what they want in Vegas. They want people to come visit. They probably don't care that their home team isn't really a home team. And it's just very unfortunate what's happening. So, long live the Oakland Coliseum. I'm really going to miss it when it's gone. I know it's trash now. If I make a bottom 5 stadium list, this will most definitely be on it, but it's also one of my favorites. And I hope you have a little more appreciation for it too. And without further ado, it should not be a surprise to anyone for me that my number one is Oracle Park, better known to me as AT&T Park, opened in 2000 for $357 million. With a record attendance of, randomly, Game 2 of the NLDS 2010. This is a modern beauty, a modern classic, one of the best ballparks ever. It's got everything I could love in a ballpark. It's got the beautiful view. You know, you got the bridge, you got the bay, you got the mountains, you got the boats. And it's just as beautiful live. I've sat at many seats there. Everyone is amazing. You got the quirks too, you know? Not too in your face like the Liberty Bell, not too tacky with just some lights, you know. We have a glove, we have a Coke bottle, we have a lot of things I'm going to be talking about. So, in the original concept art for the stadium, they were actually going to have center field, left field be more open, you know, no scoreboard, no Coke bottle, no glove, and they were going to put the scoreboard in right field. And I'm really interested to see how that would look. Seeing that center field open, a more clear view of the bay, but balls hitting off the scoreboard instead of going into the cove, which I feel like is a huge aspect. So I think at the end of the day, they made the right call. Maybe they could put the scoreboard somewhere else one day. I don't know. I would like to see that center field open. This is an interesting concept art with the scoreboard in right. Speaking of that right field, I'm going to get to it shortly, but here is some construction footage of them getting started. Really cool to see it in the very, very early stages. You can kind of get an idea of what it would have looked like to see the water straight ahead. Not the best quality picture, but right field, we have Levi's Landing, McCovey Cove beyond the wall. It is 24 feet high for Willie Mays, and it used to have a robot named Rusty the Robot. He was there when the park opened, but there were tech issues, and they took him away. And there was a little, oh, there he is, robotic. You see front, back, x-rayed. Look at the guy at the bottom right. I mean, you can get a sense of how big this thing was, and I can definitely see how this early 2000s robot had tech issues, especially with the fog and the condensation in the area, but he could move almost all his limbs. Like, you can look up some videos of him. It was pretty cool, but wasn't meant to last. On the right, where you see the splash hit sign, that's not where it is anymore. That's actually luxury seats now, and they used that room behind where I'm showing to store Rusty. So after he stopped working, they kept him in there till 2008. They redid the stadium, and they made it the Alaska Airlines luxury boxes. They put the splash hit meter a little bit to the left now. I think it's fine. Rusty's cool. Maybe one day he'll come back. But looking at some other parts, you know, some of my favorite, especially as a kid, are the Coke bottle and the glove. The Giants knew it was iconic when they were planning it. They have it in a bunch of statements, and I think they really nailed it. Unforgettable, the big Coke bottle and the big glove. Together, they don't make much sense, but they're just iconic nonetheless. Found some really cool photos of the glove being constructed. I think it's just a local art studio. They commissioned to do it, and they did a fantastic job. Here they are before it was shipped to San Francisco. Gives you some scale if you've never seen it in person. It's a huge glove. Inside of the glove, some pictures I've never seen. They had to load it onto a boat to get it to the stadium. So some more cool pictures. Imagine being out that day and not knowing and just seeing the frickin' Giants glove in the water. Must have been cool. Could have sworn there's a picture I've seen of it under the bay. Maybe this is it. Maybe I'm just forgetting. But another feature that they had, and then there were technical issues, were actually fake bubbles coming out of the Coke bottle. Never knew this till I researched this video. Found it very cool. But in some early concept art I'll show later, there were plans for the cap to open, bubbles to come out, maybe real bubbles. I think they compromised on these fake bubbles. You can see a little better here how they do the effect. They were supposed to light up, I believe. They can never really get that to work. Bubbles just look kind of weird from the distance when they're not lit up, so they took them away, and makes sense why. But if they really got that to work, imagining like the lighting up bubbles after a home run would have added a lot of charm. Here's some concept art of what they were hoping for. Never really accomplished that. They also wanted to have a cap come off of the bottle. I was reading, have the bubbles come out, the cap come off. Very cool nonetheless. Then you have McCovey Cove itself, where they hit the balls into. You have all the kayaks who go out. You have the splash hit counter. This past season got to 100 splash hits. Only counts the Giant splash hits, not like Camden Yards, where they're counting all the balls that go over. Only Giants, so the real number's higher. For the All-Star game, tons of kayaks were out, tons of inflatables. Funnily enough, not many balls went in there for the Derby, but still a cool picture. We need an All-Star game back here soon. I would love to see that. Nighttime shot of the kayaks, you know, when Bonds was going for his quest for all those home runs, seeing the bay filled with all the kayakers, something I'll never forget. Beautiful views of the skyline, especially if you're sitting down the right field line, upper deck. You can see the buildings, you can see the Bay Bridge. You can even see a little bit of the Oakland Coliseum at night sometimes if you're sitting at the right angle, but just a big part of the stadium that I feel like people don't talk about enough is just the really crisp view of the bridge. Like, that's how clear it is. This picture I'm showing right now, if you were there in person on a clear night, oh my goodness, stunning. We also have just all the angles you can see the park from, whether you're driving on the highway into the city and see it in the distance, walking along the stadium. Like, this thing does not look bad from any angle, in my opinion, as a biased Giants fan, obviously. But love the Ks, the self-flipping Ks. If you're sitting in the seat, that's your job. The food's amazing, crazy crab sandwiches, Gilroy garlic fries, just I could go on all day, but Oracle Park is my favorite. AT&T Park, Pac Bell Park, whatever you want to call it. Please go see a game there. And that is my list. So I want to know if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, tell me what should my next video be. Really appreciate you guys watching. With that being said, this is Sean. That was my top 5.